Hello, welcome to the 12 Months Marathon Podcast with me, John Hill, the running podcast for the over 35s with Marathon Dreams, episode 78, How to Understand Your Marathon Training Plan. What's going on with me at the moment? Well, as I'm sure you know if you listen to this podcast, I'm currently training for my 16th marathon. I am in the middle of week 3, and I'm doing this particular podcast today because over the last couple of weeks, in various parts of the world, I'm conscious that people listen to this from all over the globe, but particularly here in the UK where I am and potentially North America as well, there have been some challenges for people in terms of training. So here in the UK, at the end of last week, as I record this, we had some snow. Now, it was snow for us where I am particularly, so it wasn't like brought society to a standstill sort of snow. Well, it shouldn't have been anyway, but it was enough to stop you running potentially outdoors because it was relatively deep in that sense. And what then happened over the weekend, it started on about Thursday with the snow, it froze and it was sheet ice sort of across the board. So it was like snow that had been sort of trodden down and then it froze. So it made running, in my opinion, virtually impossible outdoors at any sort of level. Now, fun enough, I did see a couple of people out running. If that's what you want to do, that's up to you. But they weren't really running. They were sort of stopping and starting and holding onto things and things like that. So I did a post about this on Instagram, actually. I'm quite passionate about this because then people start with the whole bravado, I'm being hardcore, and for me, you're not. It's being reckless and stupid. I think any increased risk of injury when you can just not go for a couple of days or go on a treadmill, it's not worth it. You don't prove anything to anybody, and you the potential risk outweighs any potential benefit, if that makes sense. And this is a quick lesson I want to do. Quick tangent is when you do something, you have to look at perceived risk versus perceived benefit. Okay, so I've had a bit of a cold this week, so I was behind on my marathon training, but I thought I've got to go out running. Now, I didn't have flu or I wasn't completely incapacitated, but I had a bit of a cold, a little bit of a sorish throat, maybe a little bit of bunged up nose, but I felt okay to go and run, so I have done, and I felt okay. So the potential drawback of me doing that is I could have made my cold worse, which I didn't. But the perceived benefit of me doing that meant that I got my miles in. So based on the fact that I feel okay now, it's okay. If I was really ill and it would have knocked me out for longer, then I wouldn't have done that, and I couldn't have done that physically, but I knew I physically could have done. So that's slightly different in the sense of there is a little bit of a risk I could have made myself worse, but I would have known that quite quickly. If you go out in the ice and you fall over and break your ankle and you're marathon training, you're out of that marathon training cycle, basically. And potentially, if you do any permanent damage, you could be out of further marathon training cycles. So there's no honour in that for me. And I think for most of us who are just normal people who are just trying to get by and try and do our best, your job is to minimise risk. I also saw running clubs out in that weather, in the dangerous ice, not the cold, because some people started to shout at me on Instagram saying, are you scared of the cold? No, I've trained for 11 spring marathons. Trust me, I've ran in the cold enough times, and I actually prefer the cold, to be honest. It's more about the conditions underfoot. And then I saw some running clubs out as well. And for me, as a coach and someone who's coached people in groups and coaches people now, client safety is your number one priority. That's number one by a country mile. I cancelled a couple of my group fitness programs because of the roads around the park would have made it treacherous to get to the park. You're risking people falling over on the way there. I mean, once you're on the grass exercising, it's actually not too bad, but it's the getting there and it's the whole thing. So the risk outweighs the potential reward, and that's the way you need to look at these things. So everyone to their own, you do you. But for me as a coach and somebody who people look at as a kind of role model, I guess in some senses, it's minimise risk, get on with it and move forward. So that's that little bit I wanted to cover. Now, on that basis then, I lost about 10 miles on my marathon training plan last week. So here is what I want to do with you today, and here is how I want to help you. So because I lost 10 miles off my marathon training plan last week, I looked at my marathon plan for this week, week 4. And ironically, this week was an adaptation week, right? So it meant that actually my mileage this week was meant to be a little bit lower. So here's what I've done. So last week I was about 10 miles short. I should have been somewhere in the region of 46 to 50 miles last week. I ended up on 37. Did bits on the treadmill, don't like the treadmill, tried different treadmills in different gyms, because I remember a couple of different gyms, tried looking out of a window, tried looking into a mirror, tried watching videos on my phone on YouTube doing a slow run. None of it touched the sides for me. Physically, of course, I was fine, but it's just soul destroyed mentally. I'm only human after all. So I managed to get to 37 miles, which is about, like I said, about 10 miles is short of where I should have been. Whereas this week was meant to be an adaptation week, so I thought, right, I can move those 2 weeks round with some adaptations. Okay. Now, bearing in mind that I'm only in week 4 of a 16-week cycle, so I know, as I was saying to my coaching group on Monday evening on our call, that when we get to sort of start of Feb to middle of March, if you're doing a early-ish April marathon, like I'm doing one on the 12th, so anyone listening to this who's potentially doing, say, Brighton here in the UK on the 12th of April, which is the same day as mine, then it really, your business end, as I call it, is probably going to be start of Feb to middle of March, probably just a couple of weeks before you start tapering or so, because that's when you've got to get your volume in, and that's when I believe we build the marathon runner. Okay, so I was able to look at my plan and go, right, okay, how do we do this? Well, this week was supposed to be an adaptation week, so let's make last week the slight adaptation week. Don't go mad this week, up the mileage slightly on what it's supposed to be, and then it compensates for what I quote-unquote missed last week. Now, the benefits of that are not only physical, of course, because I'm making up my mileage, but the benefits are also psychological, because I am making myself feel more confident in my plan because I've managed to move things round. Now, I specialise in helping people over 35 run marathons. A lot of people over 35 cannot follow a marathon training plan to the letter. A lot of people in general can't follow a marathon training plan to the letter, but particularly the people that I tend to come across who've got families, jobs, responsibilities, a lot going on, it's very hard to just follow a plan as it's laid out. So one of the best things that I do for people is help them to understand how to make that plan adaptable, so we get to the end goal, as in you get to your marathon, you do your marathon distance, but you do the plan in a way that suits you. That doesn't mean that you bypass the work, and I'm really passionate about this. My message is always the same, particularly when it comes to marathons. There is no easy way to marathon train. There is no hack, there is no trick. I work in the fitness industry. I've worked in the fitness industry for a long time. This is my 17th year I've been in the fitness industry. And one of the things that quote unquote sells or captivates interest in our industry is the quick fix, the hack. Here's the easy way to do this. In my experience of 15 years, ironically 15 years this year of running marathons, 12 years this year, 2014. I was thinking about when I did my first half marathon, that was 2011. So yeah, my first marathon was 2014, my first half was 2011. So it's 12 years of marathons specifically, and arguably half marathons. There's no hacks, there's no tricks to do a marathon. Yeah, you just can't. Now someone will say, well, I read a book once that said there was a guy who only did 400 meter sprints and ran a marathon. That's one person. Yeah, there's one person that can do anything, but millions of people run marathons, and not all of them are doing 400 meter sprints only. I spoke to somebody the other week on this podcast, Rob, who by his own admission didn't perhaps do the number of miles that you would expect to do a marathon, and he still did a sub 3 on his second attempt. There were reasons for that. See what I mean? So you can always look at the extreme examples, but for most of us who are normal and got a lot going on, we have to put the work in, we have to put the miles in. So what you have to find a way of doing is understanding your plan first and foremost. That's the most important thing. So when it comes to marathon training, particularly you guys who are sort of starting out at the moment, perhaps you guys doing London or a week or so in, you guys doing perhaps Manchester here in the UK or any other marathon around April time, a couple of weeks into your plan, is we get obsessed with the plan. So we say the plan itself, the plan. So the first thing you have to have is a plan. Yeah. So having a bad plan is better than no plan. So the wonderful expression in the fitness game is it's better to follow a good plan than quit a perfect one. Yeah. So it's better to have a plan at all. Yeah. Then once we've got a plan in place, we can then look to optimize that plan. So typically when I coach people, I coach a couple of types of people on the whole when it comes to marathons. People doing their first one, or people who want to PB a subsequent one or do better on a subsequent one because perhaps they weren't happy with their first performance. Now, usually the people that do the first time either don't follow a plan or just follow a plan loosely. So having a plan will get you round, okay? But then we need to perhaps look at optimizing that. So all these plans work. So there's this whole thing about stuff and tech and which plan does this and plugs into this app and all this. All of that's irrelevant. You just need a plan, yeah? And then secondly, the most important thing, which where a lot of people fall down, is you need to know how to understand that plan and understand how to move things around like I've done this week. I've gone, right, confidence booster for me. Last week was a bust. Couldn't really do anything about it. I'm not running outdoors in those conditions. I've only got so much mental capacity to run on a treadmill. I could have done like half marathon or 14 miles on a treadmill, but it would have been soul destroying. So I looked at how I can move things around and obviously looked at the long game. And that's what you need to remember about a marathon training plan. If you're following a proper plan and it's 16 weeks long, it is the long game you can make up. That doesn't mean you can keep missing runs. It just means, like I always say with the jigsaw puzzle principle, and you can take a few pieces out as long as you know what's in that puzzle. If you start taking pieces out when it gets important, which is sort of that mid-peak phase of marathon training, that's when you're going to have problems. If you're going to say, well, I'll just miss that 20 miler there and that 20 miler there, that's when we're getting into problems, yeah? But missing a 5 mile easy run, arguably, early in the cycle isn't going to do that much damage as long as you look at it as you're playing the long game. So there's the expression "it's a marathon, not a sprint" is so true here, because you have to learn that actually the marathon's a marathon, not a sprint, but also the marathon training plan is also a marathon. It's a long time, and you've got to be in a position where you can understand how to move things around so you can factor these things in. So from a mindset point of view, if you are sort of in a place where you perhaps couldn't run as much as you would have liked because of conditions or weather or circumstances, that's absolutely fine. Like I said at my opening monologue, don't feel down or under pressure because you didn't go out in the snow or the ice. That's dangerous, and no sensible person will ever judge you for being safe or being secure and not wanting to risk injury. And that's got nothing to do with demeanor or discipline. It's just got to do with common sense, yeah. And it's also got to do with the long game, because going back to my previous example, if you're able to look at the weather forecast and go, well, this is gone in 2 days, you don't risk that longer term problem of potentially breaking your ankle or doing anything like that. There's nothing honourable in that, in my opinion. If people want to do it, that's up to them and that's their choice. And what I'm saying here isn't personal or no judgment for me on the people. But for me, we're here to set an example, and anybody like myself who's a coach or a role model should be setting the right example to say your safety, whether you're listening to this, I've never met you and I never will meet you, versus somebody that I coach, is the most important thing, number one. Whatever you do to yourself, knock yourself out, that's your choice, as long as you're not impacting or influencing anybody else. But when we are working with others or encouraging others, we have to be careful. So let's put that one to bed for now and put that over there. That's my 2 pence on that. But if you're listening to this and you have had a bit of a wobble, or you have been knocked down, or you feel behind, ignore all the stuff on social media, get back to your plan, get an understanding of your plan, get it out, look at it, see how you can move things around, and just the next run's the most important. It's what you do next that matters most, okay? Not what's happened in the past, it's what you do next, and that's the most important thing. So give yourself a bit of a break. Forgive yourself if you have, been safe or not done anything outdoors because you were concerned. That's no problem at all. It's the runs when you can go out and it is safe when you choose not to that the problem. It's not when you're trying to keep yourself safe and secure. So forgive yourself if you have had a bit of a wobble. Get back on the horse. If you want any help from me, you know what to do. All you need to do is hop over to Instagram, follow me at 12 Months to Marathon, and you can drop me a message over there if you want, or go to the link in my bio and jump into my over 35s running community over there for free. And we can sort of take you away from the noise of social media and connect over there. Then do that. That's the best thing to do. But forgive yourself, get an understanding of your plan again, see how you can move things around, and remember, it's a long haul thing and you've got time to pull it back. So yeah, there you go. That's my 2 penneth on all of that. So yeah, give yourself a bit of a break and let's move forward. So thank you very much for listening. As always, I do appreciate it. If this is the first time you listen to the podcast, please subscribe wherever you get your podcast from, sort of Apple or Spotify. If you haven't done this yet and you're a regular listener, please drop me a quick review, a 5-star review on Spotify or Apple. That really, really helps me. And sharing this with your friends as well, if there's anyone you feel might benefit from this, particularly people who are having a little bit of a wobble potentially with the marathon training. And for your free daily content and tips, don't forget to hop over to Instagram and follow me over there at 12 Months to Marathon, and we can connect and you can get loads more marathon motivation as I go through my own personal journey and I help others do the same. So thank you very much for listening, everybody. As always, I appreciate it very much, and I'll speak to you all very soon indeed.